Amazing transformation. Discover how a kind waitress learned the crippled beggar was a secret biologist. It was just another busy afternoon at the Maple Leaf when Sarah spotted him, Jack, curled up against the diner's wall like a discarded piece of furniture. His scraggly beard and dirty clothes belied the intensity in his sharp, still bright eyes. She was accustomed to the side glances from her regulars, the collective dismissal of his existence. After all, when you're a waitress in a bustling Midwestern diner, you learn to move past the distractions. But Jack, with his quiet, watchful presence, stirred something deep within her, a nagging sense of kinship. A tumultuous undercurrent rippled through her heart as she served plates of comfort food that seemed to fill gaps in her soul she could never voice. Each evening, Sarah set aside leftovers, hoping to alleviate his hunger. But as autumn's chill crept in, the weight of unraveling societal biases pressed hard against her heart. Her mother's warnings echoed her mind, drumming up fear. Don't meddle with those deemed undeserving, Sarah. His presence, though ignored by others, lingered in her thoughts. Who was she to draw the line between compassion and caution? One hectic afternoon, the lunch crowd buzzed with laughter and chatter. After dropping off a heaping plate of pancakes, Sarah glanced outside and caught Jack struggling to pick up a coin. A flicker of determination cut through her hesitation. She rushed to him. As she knelt to help, their eyes locked, and something profound passed between them. Her hands brushed against his frayed jacket, and suddenly, a tattered notebook slipped onto the pavement. Its pages were filled with detailed sketches and notes. Shock coursed through her. What sort of a life had he lived? Beneath the grime and despair, she felt the stirring of an extraordinary story. Why do you help me? Jack's voice was gravelly, the question heavy with implications. I don't know, Sarah replied, feeling her pulse quicken, a swirl of emotions rising: pity, fear, curiosity. Who was she supposed to be if she kept aiding someone others considered a burden? Before she could respond further, the moment shifted. The community she called home, with its tight-knit beliefs, crowded around her thoughts: her mother's disdainful looks, friends' raised eyebrows. Her compassion was becoming a weight on her shoulders, mixing with her growing dread of the changes unfolding before her. Did she even know how to help someone like Jack? How could she break free from the fear of rejection she felt her whole life? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With winter approaching, the stakes climbed higher. As she listened to Jack's unfolding story, a man once destined to change the world through groundbreaking science, now cast aside by tragedy, her resolve to help him grew. Yet, the whispers in her ear howled louder every day, reinforcing the barriers of class and worth. The constancy of her high school dreams clashed with the budding bond she never expected to form with him. Could she risk everything for someone society deemed a failure? Then a letter arrived, a scholarship opportunity for Emma. It promised a brighter future, yet came tangled with connections to the very mentor who championed Sarah's own academic pursuits, now a ghost of a sunset, shading Jack's legacy. The realization crashed over her, like icy water. How could she choose? The ambitions for solidarity with her daughter loomed and sank with an equal urgency to lift Jack. As she stood at that precipice, winter's chill wrapped around her like a shroud, shutting out light, but not her torment. She remained caught between two worlds, each party pulling her deeper into shadows she feared might consume them all. The biting cold of winter seeped into the diner, and Sarah felt its suffocating grip over her thoughts. As she moved through the steady hum of the Maple Leaf, each coffee refill and plate of pie felt more like a ritual of denial than service. The scholarship opportunity weighed heavily on her chest, a tangible chance for Emma to break free and make a mark in the world. Yet, those very aspirations sat uncomfortably beside her growing connection with Jack, whose brilliance flickered like a candle within the stormy winds of adversity. Returning home after another long shift, Sarah found herself sitting in Emma's empty room, the vibrant sketches pinned on the walls a painful reminder of how choice and ambition could thrive, while blanketed by societal gasps of disbelief. She picked up one of Emma's portraits, a joyous depiction of free expression. But there was nothing joyful about the images that filled her mind of Jack, painting him with lost potential and the struggles of neglect. What she could do more? Could she unravel the knots of prejudice that bound her thoughts? Turning the pages of his notebook, Sarah felt her own resolve begin to solidify. Each drawing, each line spoke of theoretical models, a scientific pulse that had once sparked a brilliance in Jack. The wonder in his illustrations whispered secrets. Perhaps she wasn't parting from her dreams, but merging them. Her instincts kicked in, urging her to demonstrate that compassion and ambition could coexist. At work the next day, Sarah felt electrified by a plan that surged within her. Instead of just offering food, she would offer conversation and, through conversations, exploration. During an unhurried afternoon shift, she walked outside with an unpretentious cup of soup. "Jack," she called softly, her words threading through the cold air as she approached him. "Can we talk?" His gaze lifted, eyes reflecting a mixture of surprise and skepticism. "About what?" "About your notes," she ventured, feeling her heart thump against her ribs. "I want to understand." Her words hung like fragile glass, and she awaited the crash of rejection or a spark of interest. When Jack finally motioned for her to sit, a small victory cooled the harshness of the winter air. As they spoke, her questions peeled back layers of Jack's story. She learned about ecosystems he once studied, the delicate balance of life, and the passions that had driven him once upon a time. But amid their deepening exchange, societal dread pulsed at Sarah's periphery, filled with expectations, fears, and her internal warfare. The whispers of judgment from friends and family circled around her relentlessly. Yet, in confronting these fears, a rebellious spirit began to ignite within her. She realized she was at a fork in the road, a duality represented not just by her choices for Emma's future, but for Jack's revival. Perhaps seeking connections, embracing every shaded element of human existence, was where her true value lay. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah's determination transformed from mere ambition into action. She decided to apply what she learned from Jack, using his ideas to plan a community outreach project that could inform local schools about the importance of environmental responsibility, melding one world to another. But as the final decision loomed before her, a presentation to the school board, where all her fears and aspirations would collide, an unexpected turn of events unfolded. A call from a mentor, the very man who had granted her the scholarship, rattled her. He wanted to discuss the project she'd been developing. Sarah dropped the phone, her mind whirling. What would this mean for her relationship with Jack? Would she have to choose between advancing her dreams and staying true to her commitment to him? The path ahead was still clouded with uncertainty, but she realized one fundamental truth. In embracing the struggle of others, she was also transforming her own. What lay ahead could unravel everything she'd built. Did she have the strength to face that reality? The stakes had never been higher. The moment of truth arrived. Could she balance both worlds? Or was she doomed to watch her aspirations slip further away? The sunlight filtered weakly through the diner's fogged windows. But for Sarah, each ray felt sharper, laden with expectation. The chaos of her thoughts swirled beneath the surface. The scholarship meeting loomed larger than life, a specter casting shadows over her daily routine. Every slip of a plate, every table she wiped down underscored the burden of her choices, and nagging voice in her head repeating the question. Could she balance her dreams with her newfound responsibility towards Jack? With the echo of her mentor's call still fresh, Sarah knew she needed clarity. Her passion for environmental advocacy was genuine, and now it intertwined with Jack's brilliance. This project wasn't merely about raising awareness. It was a bridge between two worlds she longed to unify. Over the next few days, Sarah carved out pockets of time during her shifts. Quiet moments, often spent sipping coffee at the counter between customers, evolved into brainstorming sessions. She visualized the dynamics of the project, considering how their shared experiences could resonate with the children she hoped to inspire. Yet, each conceptual sketch she created was tinged with tension. The delicate balance between ambition for Emma's future and the potential consequences for Jack's newfound hope sat heavily on her shoulders. One evening, she found herself kneeling on Emma's bedroom floor, surrounded by the comfort of familiar sketches. She could see the strength in her daughter's creations, feeling an undeniable spark of inspiration. If Emma could dare to dream, why couldn't she? Late into the night, words and sketches flowed as she began drafting her presentation outline, effort etching determination into her brow. Still, underlying excitement morphed into anxiety. The closer she got to the presentation date, the more she questioned her commitment to Jack. Was she merely using him to fuel her own ambitions? Confronting that possibility stirred a sense of urgency. It wasn't just about her goals anymore. It was about honoring Jack's struggle and the brilliance that lay beneath the surface. Having made up her mind, Sarah reached out. "Jack, I want you to help me with this," she said one early morning, determination threaded into her voice. He gripped the edges of the counter, uncertainty flickering across his features. "Do you think it matters?" he asked softly, the weight of his past evident in his eyes. "More than you know. Your understanding could inspire these kids in ways they can't yet imagine," she pressed. For Sarah, it was no longer just about her aspirations. It was a calling to unleash Jack's potential, an invitation for him to rediscover his own worth. After a brief silence, Jack nodded. Their partnership crystallized, igniting a spark that surged through her veins. They began meeting after her shifts, poring over notes and drafting plans. The coffee shop became their secluded haven, where ideas flowed as freely as the coffee. With each conversation, fragments of Jack's brilliance resurfaced, seeing light in his eyes deepened Sarah's conviction. However, threaded through their shared dreams was an undercurrent of fear. What would happen when the world outside their coffee-spun cocoon intruded? The day of the presentation arrived, an ocean of anticipation crashing over Sarah as she took to the podium. Her stomach churned with nerves, yet her heart raced with purpose. She scanned the faces of the school board. Her eyes connected momentarily with Jack's, standing at the back. With a supportive smile, he seemed to whisper, "You can do this." Just as she began to speak, a sudden commotion at the back of the room diverted her attention. The door swung open with a loud creak, and in walked someone she had not expected: Emma, wide-eyed and clutching her backpack. What was she doing here? Sarah's heart pit-patted, caught between pride and dread. At that moment, her resolve solidified. This wasn't merely about her or Jack anymore. The moment had arrived, and Sarah felt the stakes elevate. Would she find the words to capture everyone's attention, balancing the passions of her past, present, and future? But just as she opened her mouth to introduce their initiative, the unsettling feeling that something unexpected was on the horizon began to creep in. What declaration would come next, and how would it shape her journey forward? The murmur of the audience faded into an unsettling silence as Sarah stood at the podium, the weight of her decision pressing on her chest. Emma's presence ignited a torrent of thoughts: concern for her daughter's face, the implications of her openness, and the scrutiny of everyone in the room. Would they understand her message? Would they see the truth woven into her words, the passion carved into the essence of what she and Jack were trying to do? Sarah stammered, her initial confidence draining away. The stares from the school board felt like lasers, questioning her commitment, her sincerity. Stalling for a moment, she recollected her passion for this cause, the burning urgency that had ignited in her over the past weeks. "Thank you for this opportunity to present our initiative," she finally said, collecting herself. Jack's encouraging nod reassured her, his quiet but steady belief in this venture giving her strength. With every word, she gathered the fragments of her nerves, weaving them into a narrative of hope. She spoke passionately about their vision, a project aimed at inspiring local children to recognize the environmental challenges that lay ahead. Jack's unique perspective would be the lifeline, grounding her effusive dreams with authenticity. Yet, Sarah felt something shift within her as she shared. The objective suddenly emerged as more profound than a mere project. It had grown into a reflection of the community she had yearned to build, not just for Emma, but for all children. As she painted their mission with her words, she saw Jack's potential shining through, bringing together disparate lives in a way that only someone who had traversed darkness could. The presentation progressed, but with every passing moment, Sarah felt her inner turmoil grow. Had she inadvertently placed Jack on a pedestal, a tool to validate her ambitions? Her eyes swept around the room, landing on Emma's wide gaze. What would her daughter take from this? Would she pride herself on her mother's success or feel an underlying betrayal in putting Jack's narrative on display? When she reached the end, a hush fell over the room. Sarah braced herself for a wave of critiques. A looming fear of judgment hung heavy in the air. Would they connect with her passion? Would they see the bridge she envisioned, the possibilities waiting to be unleashed? Just as she opened her mouth to take questions, the tableau was broken by a finger raised from the back of the auditorium. The chairwoman leaned forward, her face exhibiting a mix of intrigue and skepticism. "This sounds promising," she began, her voice deliberate. "But how do we ensure that Jack's involvement isn't just a means to your end? What steps will you both take to make this equitable?" The insinuation in her tone stung, leaving Sarah momentarily speechless. It wasn't merely a challenge. It was a profound moral dilemma, thrust into the spotlight scrutiny of the very foundation of their partnership. Jack's expression shifted, uncertainty mingling with anxiety. Sarah sensed the tension spiraling. Would she defend her intentions, or would she instead choose to create space for Jack's voice? This was evolving beyond her moment of triumph, morphing into a crucible that would test everything she had built within her. Caught between self-preservation and her commitment to authenticity, Sarah could feel the room pulse with anticipation. The time had come to face not just the question at hand, but the larger implications of who they both could become in this space. What if she started, doubts swirling like a storm in her mind? What if this project was less about what I want and more about ensuring that we are both heard equally? There it was, the shift she had been yearning for, the chance to pull back the layers and stand shoulder to shoulder, not above. Yet as she uttered those words, she could sense the trajectory of her vision shifting. What lay ahead remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. This moment would redefine how she viewed her own ambitions and Jack's role in their shared future. As the board's gaze sharpened, the room buzzed with anticipation, each heartbeat echoing the stakes of where their journey might lead. Would she find her voice amidst this scrutiny, or would they lose what they had so carefully crafted? Sarah could feel the weight of the next question pressing down on her, the moment of truth arriving ominously at her doorstep. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the tension coiling tighter in her chest. The chairwoman's question lingered like a shadow over her initial enthusiasm. Clarity dawned upon her. This was not merely a matter of presenting a project, but rather an opportunity to redefine partnership in a world that often favored singular narratives. What if our goal is to use this initiative to amplify each other's voices? She proposed, her voice gaining momentum. The realization that Jack and she were not adversaries but allies slowly solidified her stance. What if we're here to listen as much as we are to teach? Jack's eyes widened, and for the first time that evening, she saw a flicker of hope amidst his uncertainty. Sarah pressed on, feeling her resolve fortify. She could see the school board members leaning in, intrigued by the shift in tone. By framing their mission as a shared journey rather than an individual quest, she reclaimed her narrative. It felt radical, authentic, and undeniably empowering. In the back of her mind, however, doubts simmered. Would the school board truly appreciate this perspective? Was her willingness to share space with Jack too bold, too naive? The questions surged as quickly as they came. Doubt had always been her uninvited guest. Yet, she couldn't allow it to paralyze her now. I believe this initiative reflects the kind of collaboration our community desperately needs, she continued. We're not just talking about environmental challenges. It's about inclusivity and understanding, bridging gaps that have long divided us. As she spoke, Sarah felt the air thicken with possibility. With each word, she dismantled the narrative that had driven her for so long, an ambition fueled by a need for validation. She embraced the discomfort creeping up her spine, using it as a catalyst for growth. The chairwoman leaned back thoughtfully, weighing Sarah's words against the looks of skepticism that had earlier etched across her face. So, how do you plan to ensure that both voices are equally represented in this project? She asked, the query striking a chord deeper than the previous skepticism. By collaborating arm in arm, through open dialogue and active participation from both of us, Sarah interjected, her pulse quickening as she grasped the moment. We'll set aside not just our titles, but our fears, and create space for questions and experiences to emerge in tandem. It is not just about our individual stories. It's about creating a narrative that embodies all perspectives. The atmosphere shifted palpably as Jack stepped forward, emboldened by Sarah's courage. I appreciate what Sarah is saying. He began, his voice steadier than before. My background may add a layer to our discussions, but it's imperative to highlight that we are co-authors here, learning from each other. Sarah watched Jack take this leap, and for a fleeting moment, she felt a rush of pride wash over her. There was the essence of their partnership amplified in action. Yet still, a tightening knot in her stomach refused to dissolve. Would they really embrace this concept of true collaboration? Or would the fear of uncomfortable conversations thwart their intentions? A member of the board raised an eyebrow, challenging their newfound resolve. Dismissing your personal narratives seems risky. What if there are tensions or disagreements in this partnership? The question pierced Sarah's facade of confidence. Behind the podium, she felt the weight of reality bear down once more. True collaboration demanded vulnerability and risk. What if the vulnerable threads she proposed to weave in the narrative unraveled instead of unified? We'll create a structure for accountability, ensuring we keep lines of communication open even when it feels uncomfortable, Sarah replied, feeling the stakes rise. Just like the children we aim to reach, Jack and I will need to learn and adapt together, no matter the challenges. As the chairwoman nodded, curiosity and skepticism dancing in her eyes, Sarah couldn't shake the fear that gnawed her, the fear of failure, the fear of letting Jack down. The questions swirled relentlessly. Was this the right approach? How would they manage disagreements when they inevitably arose? The room remained hushed, anticipation crackling in the air like static electricity. Sarah knew the path ahead would demand more than just dreams and intentions. It would require fortitude, patience, and the ability to navigate conflict, both within herself and with Jack. At this pivotal juncture, Sarah found herself reassessing her vision of success, feeling the weight of a new understanding blossom within her. She was ready to redefine what it meant to truly collaborate. Yet uncertainty lingered on the horizon, threatening to cloud their intentions. Was she capable of leading this initiative while navigating the complex dynamics of vulnerability? The moment loomed, and she could sense the transformative challenge awaiting her. What would it mean to confront these internal fears head-on, and could their partnership withstand the pressures of truth? As Sarah searched the faces in the room for affirmation, she felt the fierce urgency of change calling to her, echoing a promise that the journey was only just beginning. Sarah's heart raced as the silence stretched on, a multitude of thoughts spinning through her mind. She was standing at the precipice of not just a professional endeavor, but a personal revolution. It felt ironic that while she had openly discussed the importance of vulnerability, she now stood paralyzed by her own. The distance between her intent and her emotional reality felt vast, like a canyon separating her from the very courage she sought to embody. The chairwoman finally broke the silence, nodding slowly. "Very well. I'm intrigued to see how this unfolds. But," she added, her eyes narrowing slightly, "you'll need to prepare for dissent. Not everyone will be on board with the idea of shared narratives." Sarah took a deep breath, recognizing the challenge as an inevitable part of their journey. It was just about securing approval. It was about proving that their approach could yield meaningful results. "Yes, absolutely. We're not just asking for support. We expect it will make some uncomfortable. But that discomfort?" She paused, collecting her thoughts. "That discomfort is where the most profound growth occurs. We need to embrace it." Jack stood beside her, his presence a reassuring anchor. "Together, we'll drive the discussions that lead to understanding rather than fear," he said, his voice resonating with conviction. "There's much to learn from these conversations, even if they're difficult." Sarah marveled at the shift. He was beginning to mirror her understanding, embodying the partnership they aimed to create. The room felt charged, their shared vision slowly resonating through the board members. Hope flickered, yet self-doubt crept closer. What if their efforts were dismissed? What if they faltered despite their shared resolve? She wavered, grappling with her internal voice that warned her against dreaming too big. As the meeting adjourned, Sarah felt both exhilarated and exhausted. Jack caught her eye, a silent understanding passing between them. They stepped outside the boardroom together, and the stark contrast of the bustling hallway jolted her back to reality. "It went well," he said, attempting encouragement but failing to mask the uncertainty in his tone. "It did, but it's only the beginning." Her mind raced with possible scenarios, each darker than the last. What if the immediate support waned? What if their collaboration became an arena for conflict instead of growth? They walked in silence, the ambient noise replaced by the clacking of their shoes on the tiled floor. Sarah could feel the weight of expectation, not just from the board, but from herself. She had opened the door to vulnerability, yet she questioned if she had the strength to step through it fully. "Are you okay?" Jack's voice broke her reverie. The genuine concern etched on his features momentarily lifted her spirits. She hesitated. "I believe in what we're trying to do, but I wonder if I'm ready for the fallout when things get tough." Jack considered her words. "What if we embrace challenges as learning opportunities? It sounds cliché, but every step will teach us something. We'll make mistakes, but we'll adapt." "Yes, but what if those mistakes fracture our partnership instead?" Sarah countered, her anxiety heightened. Jack stopped walking, turning to face her. "Then that's our lesson. It's not about avoiding mistakes. It's about how we handle them together. Isn't that what true collaboration means?" As she absorbed Jack's words, clarity refracted through her tangled thoughts. She was ready to navigate the differences their partnership might evoke, even if it meant confronting her discomfort. "Okay," she responded, her voice steadier now. "Let us do this. But I need to know if you're fully on board. If we're going to take this leap, we have to commit to honesty, even when it's hard." Jack met her gaze with fire in his eyes. "Absolutely. I think we can build something remarkable here." Sarah felt the knot in her stomach loosen just a fraction, a flicker of anticipation lighting up her spirit. Their partnership represented inevitable growing pains, yet there lay immense potential for transformation. As they stepped out into the fresh air, Sarah knew the future would challenge their resolve. The specter of failure still loomed large. Yet with Jack at her side, she embraced the uncertainty that lay ahead, a path riddled with risks but pulsing with potential. But in a moment of unsettling reflection, she questioned if Jack truly understood the depths of her fears. Could their collaboration survive the tension when both their narratives were on the line? The road stretched ahead, fraught with tension and lessons waiting to be uncovered, testing the very foundation of their partnership. The next chapter awaited, and Sarah felt the evolving story beckon. What truths would unfold as they dared to embrace the rawness of their vulnerability? The cool breeze outside was a welcome contrast to the heated discussions inside the boardroom. but it did little to quell the tumultuous sea of thoughts churning within Sarah. She pulled her jacket tighter around her, not just from the chill, but as a physical manifestation of her inner turmoil. Doubt draped over her, heavy and constricting. Jack walked beside her, his focused gaze ahead. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that beneath his calm exterior, he too harbored concerns. Part of her wanted to voice her fears, but she hesitated, fearing that sharing might dilute her resolve. Instead, she reflected on their shared commitment, a lifeline that propelled her forward despite the waves of anxiety threatening to pull her back. "Let us meet with Meredith tomorrow," Jack suggested, breaking the silence as they reached the parking lot. "She might have insights about potential pushback we didn't anticipate." The practicality of his suggestion resonated, but it also reignited her fears. What if they were wrong? What if bringing Meredith into the conversation exposed their vulnerabilities to scrutiny, rather than solidifying their resolve? "Yeah, good idea," she replied, though the words sounded more like an agreement out of obligation than enthusiasm. As they settled into the car, Sarah felt the weight shift slightly, her pulse quickening as Jack turned the engine on. "Listen," he said, glancing over at her as he rolled down the windows, "I know it's daunting. If you ever feel like the weight of this is too much, I need you to tell me. Collaboration isn't just about sharing ideas. It's about sharing burdens too." His words stung, piercing the protective shell she had carefully constructed. Did he recognize the fragility of her confidence? "Jack," she began, but stopped, fighting the urge to spill her insecurities. Would voicing them only cement them in reality? Instead, she focused on the road ahead, watching as the city blurred by each passing scene, a reminder of the life that awaited her beyond the confines of her worries. Arriving at home, Sarah settled at her kitchen table, staring at the notes scattered around fragments of ideas, potential narratives, concerns, and well-intentioned optimism. The disparity between what she envisioned and her current emotional state felt like a dark chasm, and despite the clarity she had glimpsed earlier, a nagging doubt lingered. She picked up a pen and started to write. What if my failures become the defining narrative? What if I can't rise? The words flowed in a frantic rush, pouring her fears onto the paper. Each sentence seemed to reveal not just uncertainty, but a deeper truth of fear of being seen, raw and unpolished. What if I'm not enough? The question hung heavy in the air, the ink drying, but the worry remained fresh. As darkness settled outside, Sarah's phone buzzed, breaking her reverie. It was a message from Jack. "Ready for tomorrow? We're in it together, remember?" His simplicity grounded her, but also ignited a flicker of rebellion within. What if their partnership still spiraled into chaos? What if her struggles overwhelmed the project, forever bounding her to self-doubt? The conversation from earlier echoed in her mind. Jack's commitment felt genuine, yet she couldn't shake the fear that he had yet to witness her at her lowest. What then? Would he reconsider his place at her side? Determined, she wrote a different line under her earlier musings. What if my journey of vulnerability inspires others? What if we succeed? Settling her thoughts the best she could for the night, she allowed herself to drift into a restless sleep, questions swirling like a storm in her head. Tomorrow would bring their first meeting with Meredith, a turning point that could either fortify their resolve or expose cracks in their partnership. Sarah could feel the tension building as she braced for a confrontation not of others' opinions, but with her own insecurities and limitations. Would she rise to meet the challenge ahead, or would she falter? The crossroads approached an inevitable encounter with the truths that lay both outside and within. What awaited them at that meeting could redefine everything. Would it affirm the strength of their partnership, or reveal fractures they could not mend? The morning light poured through the window, illuminating the remnants of her scattered notes. Sarah sat at the kitchen table again, sipping her coffee while replaying fragments of her dreams, uncertain if they were prophetic or merely reflections of her internal conflict. The meeting with Meredith loomed over her, a daunting specter that demanded both her presence and resolve. She couldn't shake the feeling that today was more than just a meeting. It represented an opportunity to redefine her narrative, to confront the fears that had settled around her like an unwanted cloak. Jack had been right. Collaboration was about sharing burdens. Yet, how could she expect to share if she couldn't even acknowledge her own fears? Glancing at the clock, she realized time was marching on, unyielding. She smoothed down her blouse, reaffirming her determination. The decisions made today would either propel them forward or lay bare the fractures in her self-belief. Arriving at the office, Sarah noticed Jack already setting up the meeting room, meticulously aligning notes and documents. His efficiency both comforted and intimidated her. He looked up and offered a reassuring smile, but she could see a hint of the same tension reflected in his eyes. They were in this together, yet the weight felt disproportionately heavy on her shoulders. Meredith arrived promptly, her demeanor businesslike yet warm. As the three of them settled around the table, Sarah's heart raced. This was her chance to either solidify their concept or watch it crumble while chaotic doubts swirled within. Jack initiated the meeting, outlining their vision and the potential hurdles they might face. Sarah listened intently, her mind racing with thoughts that spun like a cyclone. What if they miscalculated? What if she couldn't keep up with the demands of leadership? Would her inexperience result in disaster? Or was this an opportunity for growth? Sarah, do you want to add anything? Jack's question pierced her fog of anxiety. It was now or never. Taking a deep breath, she spoke, her voice steadier than she felt. Based on our research, we've identified key demographics that resonate with our message. However, we anticipate resistance from the traditionalists within our field. The words flowed as she talked through their data, focusing not just on the potential pitfalls, but emphasizing the strengths their approach could offer. For the first time, Sarah felt a surge of confidence. She could hear the passion in her voice, a clear departure from the uncertainty that had plagued her the night before. She followed with another observation, detailing a strategy she had developed on her way to the meeting. It was a calculated risk, an idea that pushed boundaries, but her burgeoning determination propelled her forward. Meredith leaned back, evaluating not just Sarah's ideas but her evolving presence. This is insightful, Sarah. I can see how your perspective brings a fresh angle to our initiative, she said, nodding thoughtfully. Pride mixed with disbelief fluttered within Sarah. Had she truly offered something of value? For that fleeting moment, the doubts subsided and the weight of their project felt a little lighter. Yet, she knew one positive comment wouldn't erase her fear entirely. As the meeting unfolded, Sarah observed the interplay of ideas, the creative energy buzzing around the table. She found herself joining in discussions with more conviction, each contribution an affirmation of what she could bring to the table. But lingering in the back of her mind was the question, would she be able to maintain this newfound confidence, or would it dissolve under pressure once more? As they wrapped up the meeting, Meredith informed them she would take their proposals to the senior leadership team. I believe your concept has great potential. The key now is execution. Let's regroup next week. As they stepped out into the bustling hallway, Jack turned to her. You did great, Sarah. You really brought it today. She smiled, but the shadow of uncertainty returned. The conversation with Meredith had seemed promising, yet she couldn't shake the nagging voice whispering that her triumphs were fleeting. She would have to face deeper truths, battle her fears head-on. Thank you, but this isn't over yet, she replied, matching his enthusiasm. Next week could either reinforce or unravel everything. Jack's expression shifted toward caution, mirroring the intensity of her thoughts. Sarah understood now that their journey was not just about the project, but also about navigating the complexities of human emotion, fear, and growth. Today marked a step forward, yet she felt an impending responsibility, looming the need to prove not only to others, but also to herself that she could maintain this momentum. What challenges awaited them upon re-engagement with leadership? The horizon shimmered with opportunities, but shadows of doubt still flickered in the corners of her mind. What were these new demons she would have to confront when the facade of progress inevitably cracked? The real struggle was just beginning. The next few days followed a predictable pattern for Sarah. She returned to the office, burying herself in data analysis and refining strategies that felt more tangible after their meeting with Meredith. Each morning, she replayed those moments around the conference table, where her voice held weight. Yet, each evening brought with it the relentless tide of doubt that wore at her newfound confidence. On Thursday, Jack approached her desk, a strangeness in his demeanor. His enthusiasm during their last meeting had seemed almost infectious, but now he appeared contemplative. "Are you ready for the follow-up?" His voice was gravelly, tinged with uncertainty. "I think so," she replied, though the words sounded hollow even to her. The anticipation of the executive meeting felt like a noose tightening around her resolve. She had staked a claim in their project, but now she had to protect it. That meant encapsulating her ideas in a manner that commanded respect. "Just remember, they're not out to dismiss us," Jack said, moving a stack of papers aside as he leaned on her desk. "They're looking for potential." A flicker of determination sparked within her. She had decided to prove, not just to Meredith, but also to herself, that she wasn't a mere observer, she was a contributor. And yet, as the date approached, doubt began to gnaw at her, questioning if she had the capability to back up her ideas under scrutiny. The weight of expectation loomed larger, and she felt herself almost shrinking beneath it. Friday arrived, and Sarah found herself staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. "You can do this," she whispered, though the words felt foreign. The mantra of self-encouragement did little to quell the surge of trepidation rising in her gut. The light above flickered an omen, perhaps, and she took a long, steadying breath. In the conference room that afternoon, the mood was decidedly more serious. Meredith had convened a larger audience than before. Senior managers and stakeholders crowded around a long table. A palpable tension filled the air. Decisions were looming, and while Sarah had hoped to shine, anxiety twisted in her stomach like a vice. Jack led the presentation, his voice steady and confident, qualities Sarah admired and envied. She slipped into her place behind him, prepared to lend support, but suddenly reminded of her previous insecurities. As the questions began to unravel from the room, Sarah felt a shift. Executives, with penetrating gazes, challenged Jack as assertions, intrigued yet skeptical about the feasibility of their proposal. Her grip tightened around the edge of the table, her instincts telling her it was time to jump in. She noticed the raised eyebrows, the slight leaning forward the moment was ripe. Actually, she interjected, her voice executing a surprising steadiness. "If we examine the data trends from the last 3 years, it becomes clear that there is a significant shift towards innovation in our sector. Sticking with outdated models not only risks stagnation, it could undermine our market share." This was new territory. With every word, she felt the silence shift, the judicious attention focused on her. The room became a crucible, and here, surrounded by authority, she discovered not only her voice but her power. Sarah elaborated on their research, diving deeper into specifics she had cradled in her mind. Jack shot her a glance, surprise and pride mixing in his expression. She continued, leaning into her momentum, confidently addressing doubts with facts that solidified their perspective. It was exhilarating, each incremental acceptance from the room feeding a deep reservoir she hadn't known existed. But as questions turned into criticisms, her confidence battled once more with that familiar sense of impending doom. What she had overstepped? What if her moment of clarity was mere illusion? An executive pressed, and how will you react to pushback from the industry? Proposing change always invites resistance. The question hung there, oppressive. Sweat beaded on her forehead, thoughts racing. This was it, the crux of her capabilities under fire. She had to not just answer. She had to embody the strength she was fighting for. By leveraging our strengths in data and direct outreach, we'll not only present our case, but actively facilitate discussions that ease concerns, she proclaimed, driven by an instinct that pulled her further away from self-doubt. Resistance can't deter us if we offer tangible solutions. The initial skepticism began to wane, replaced with intrigue. She was redefining the narrative, transforming fear into a battle cry for progress. As she concluded, applause echoed softly, but what lingered was not applause, it was a question of resolve. The executives were engaged, and yet she could sense a larger test ahead. They would evaluate not just her ideas, but the conviction behind them, her capacity to handle turbulence. Moments later, as the room dispersed and discussions resumed, she caught Jack's gaze. There was pride, yes, but also caution, as if he recognized the dual nature of their journey. "Sarah," he began, stepping close, "you've got something more than just data now. But we'll need to prepare for the fallout of pushing boundaries." As doubt filtered back in, she realized it wasn't just her ideas on trial, but her resolve to lead through conflicts that lay ahead. Was she really empowered, or merely riding the wave of adrenaline? With every fiber of her being, she knew she'd have to dive deeper in confronting the very fears that had held her captive for so long. The upcoming presentation to the executive board was no longer just about their proposal, it was about her own fight within. The moment of truth approached, and somewhere within, beneath the layers of expectation, Sarah sensed the need for a reckoning. What would she reveal when the mask of confidence cracked? The real battle was just beginning. In the days leading up to the executive presentation, Sarah's mind raced with anticipation and self-reflection. Every night, she meticulously reviewed her notes, preparing to defend the vision she and Jack had crafted. Both the weight of her responsibility and the echoes of doubt caused her to confront a transformative question. Who was she becoming through this journey? The day of the pivotal presentation arrived, and Sarah stood at the threshold of the conference room, battling a familiar trepidation. Behind her, Jack was busy adjusting the projector, and the earnestness in his movements spurred her desire to show her authentic self. Once seated, the room filled with senior executives, all eyes on Sarah. She felt a wave of warmth cascade over her. She had weathered enough tumult to know this moment could redefine not only their project, but also her place within it. Jack opened the presentation with clarity and poise, setting the stage for their initiative. Each slide represented a piece of their shared ambition. Yet, deep within Sarah loomed the nagging anxiety that she might not live up to expectations. Then it was her turn. As she rose to speak, the moment crystallized. This wasn't solely about sharing ideas. It was a stand for her place in this narrative. Today, she began, voice steady, we aim not just to promote environmental awareness, but to create a movement that integrates diverse viewpoints and encourages active participation. A flicker danced in her chest. She was not merely a cog in the wheel, but a vibrant contributor to a larger story. Yet as she navigated through statistics and compelling arguments, she perceived eyes narrowing in scrutiny. There are always challenges, she continued, but rather than retreat in the face of criticism, we will leverage it to adapt our strategies. With each assertion, she felt the courage build within her. This wasn't passive acceptance. This was commitment in full display. Suddenly, an executive posed a pointed question. What happens when you face dissent? How will you ensure that all voices remain valued? The query hung in the air, thick with potential. Instead of recoiling, Sarah leaned into the discomfort. Disagreement is a catalyst for innovation. We will foster a culture of shared stories, where divergent viewpoints strengthen our collective resolve. This wasn't simply about them. It was personal. She was asserting her right to be heard, challenging the bias that had once surrounded her. As she spoke, the room's tension began to dissipate. Slowly but surely, she realized that her fears were no longer shackles. They transformed into catalysts for meaningful dialogue. Jack nodded encouragingly, and she seized the momentum, detailing solutions and inviting every voice into their conversation. The presentation wrapped up with applause, but the true victory lay in the transformations happening within her. A senior executive approached with a smile, saying, "Your passion is infectious, and your strategy astute. We need this drive." Validation coursed through her system, a recognition that she had indeed claimed her space at the table. After the meeting, Sarah and Jack stepped outside, a palpable energy coursing between them. "You were incredible," he said, beaming. "You truly held your own." "I could feel the doubts falling away," she replied with a gentle smile. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff and deciding to leap into the unknown. Together, they walked back into the sunlight. Sarah's confidence had reached a new peak, buoyed not just by external validation, but by an enduring belief in herself. She had achieved what once felt insurmountable: the ability to translate fear into purpose, vulnerability into strength. Weeks later, as their project began to take flight within the community, Sarah reflected on her journey while standing in front of a vibrant classroom filled with eager faces. She was no longer just the kind waitress or the mediator. Her evolution resonated through every word she shared, embodying her transformation into a leader devoted to bridging gaps and championing voices. With each success, with every connection forged through their environmental initiative, she felt a profound authenticity settling like a warm embrace around her shoulders. The struggle with Jack had not only illuminated their partnership, but it sparked a deeper journey within herself. For the first time, she felt recognized, capable, and empowered to make a genuine impact. No longer did her past define her. Rather than an obstacle, her partnership with Jack had birthed a shared vision pulsing with excitement and possibility. As they continued their work, Sarah recognized the unique blend of ambition and compassion that had unfolded, a tapestry woven through trial and growth. She had transformed a waitress who had once quietly boxed herself in, now a fierce advocate standing tall amidst the challenges that would inevitably come. This was her moment. She had emerged victorious, and it was worth every ounce of struggle. Today, she committed to building bridges that would lead others towards their own transformations. Embrace your transformative journey. Don't just observe, but act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.